currency
for New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's live broadcast. It's September 19th, 2012. And I have a flurry of things I'd like to go over this evening. The first being something, I want to bring this up first because I'm going to get sidetracked, and I know I not that I'll forget it, but I'm going to go down a few different paths tonight, and I figure let's get this out of the way first. So the first thing I want to discuss, and this has just been eating me up since I saw it yesterday, it's been really pissing me off. Congress to cut 9/11 first responders benefits. It's what? Exactly 8 days since the 11th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. They just recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, admitted that cancer was being caused by the dust and all the crap that was in it, that the EPA said that it was okay to go down to ground zero and breathe. Remember that? Christy Todd Whitman. Former governor of New Jersey. I regret ever voting for her. Ever. Congress to cut 9/11 first responders benefits. Only days after a National Health Care Act was expanded to provide coverage to September 11th first responders that have been diagnosed with cancer in the wake of the terrorist attacks, the future of the federal plan is now up in the air. When the U.S. President Barack Obama signed his name to the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act in early 2011, he authorized the government to assist with medical bills incurred by emergency workers who have developed problems in the years since the World Trade Center was destroyed in 2001. Under automatic budget cuts expected to start next year, the healthcare program could be drastically cut short and stripped of millions of dollars in funding. So, to make this understandable for maybe people that don't, they hear any type of numbers or economics and they go, well, I don't like math. To make this real simple and to make you understand this, there's automatic budget cuts coming into place. And they'll fight to be able to give money to their military-industrial complex owners. They'll fight to make sure that we can drop bombs on people all over the world. They'll fight to make sure that they get every last dollar to do it. And how are they going to make sure that they get that money? They're going to make sure that they get it on the backs of the dying first responders from 9/11. Just disgusting. You can probably hear by my tone that I'm really pissed off. See, when I rant and rave and go off, I'm angry, but that's me venting. When I'm sitting here calm as could be like I am right now talking to you, I'm really pissed. This is just absolutely disgusting. And I don't expect anything from the government. I don't expect them to do anything for these guys. I don't get anything out of this, by the way. Okay? I don't get any money or no check from the government. I bring this up because I want these guys to have somebody fighting for them. Because everybody's behind the first responders. We all love them come 9/11, right? Everybody's out there, support the first responders, 9/11-01. That's why I'm joining the military, man. Yeah. But nobody really talks about them. 8 days later, and the budget's going to get cut. But no, we got plenty of money to go bomb Libya. We want to, hey, we got to give the Syrians, the Syrian quote-unquote rebels, Al-Qaeda, we got to give them weapons and goggles and stuff and support. They need money. You know, I guess I'm an unpatriotic person. I'm not a good citizen because I think that we should be taking care of our own people rather than fomenting civil wars around the world. Absolutely disgusting. And I know the beast. I know the nature of it. It's just absolutely disgusting. We've lost more people, first responders, due to illness since 9/11 than we did from the towers coming down on 9/11. Does anybody realize that? Does anybody realize how many people have died? And it's not just the first responders, too. What about all the civilians that breathe the same crap? I've played the clips on air before. I've talked about the movie before. I told you all you should go see. Look it up on YouTube. Dust to Dust, the health effects of 9/11. How about the entire school class that is sick? An entire class sick. And I don't mean a math class. You know what I mean when I say class. I mean the entire student body for that year. Sick. Leukemias, all sorts of diseases. You come to find out they didn't clean the air ducts out in the school. They just sent them back in. Why? Well, because they make money on the healthcare end of it later on when the kids are sick and dying, and anybody is sick and dying, and they sell them tons of pills and stuff that they don't need, right? And if they admitted to certain things, that would give them liability. That would make them guilty. Why do you think depleted uranium will never be? I guarantee you, if they find that DU is horrible, it'll be if we have a Veterans Administration in 50 or 60 years from now. Or if we haven't turned into total tyranny, just, medieval style, Dark Ages type planet. Because that's where we're headed. But I guarantee you they'll never talk about depleted uranium within the next 30 or 40 years. Because if they did, then like when I was interviewing Doug Rocky, and we talked about this, if they did, then all the people of Fallujah would be able to, there'd be a legal precedent set. According to legalese and their law, and the way things operate currently, you'd have everybody and their mother being able to file and get looked at and put in claims. Now, it doesn't mean everything would get approved, but the point is they would open up Pandora's box. And they don't want that. See, these guys have no problem, and there's women too. These people have no problem killing people. They have no problem poisoning water supplies. They have no problem making people go down to ground zero and not wear any protective masks. And by the way, when I was loading trucks up with the Red Cross, there was thousands of air masks. Thousands. I'll repeat that one more time. Thousands of air masks that we loaded into trucks. I drove a forklift for doing 12-hour shifts, helping the Red Cross, okay? I loaded trucks that went right to Ground Zero. This is days after 9/11. Within like a week and a half, we were loading trucks. Those guys had masks. They weren't given to them. The supplies went down there, but somewhere in between where the supplies were being dropped off and the first responders on the pile, they just weren't getting the masks. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. We're going to break. We'll be right back. We are back. And yes, the first segment I was a little pissed. Just when it comes to the people that are sick and dying, and we lose more every day because of 9/11. So when it just comes to the people that are dying and that are sick, it really irritates the hell out of me, and it pisses me off to no end that the American public, I mean, you would think that at least they would have some idea about the dying first responders, but the general public doesn't know. I mean, people don't even know about 9/11. You want to talk about manipulation and propaganda and using the media to keep people so busy. There are people that are alive in this country currently that have no clue what 9/11 is. You think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding? The youth of today, remember, ladies and gentlemen, 9/11 was 11 years ago. So if the kid was 4 or even 5 years old, he might not remember 9/11. Might not know what happened. Because now they'd be 15, 16. I know kids. I know of them, not know them personally, but I know of them. Kids that have no clue what 9/11 was. None. They attacked us or something. That's why we're in Afghanistan. Do you know what they teach to kids nowadays? Teachers are teaching kids that the reason we're at war with Afghanistan is because the Afghan people, the Afghanis, we're at war because they attacked us on 9/11, and they hate us. The Afghan people hate us, and that's why we're in Afghanistan. That's what they're teaching little kids today. I'm not kidding. They're teaching kids that they hate us. We're teaching them that. We're the ones teaching them hate and lies and propaganda. When I say we, I mean the people of this country. Because we are so wrapped up in our own little lives, and we're so wrapped up in the latest fashion or basketball or all this other needless garbage that most of these parents don't even bother to pay attention to what their kids are being taught. This is why I don't have children. I've said this time and time again. My wife and I sat down and talked about this. We sat and we had a long talk. We don't want to bring kids into this world right now. And I don't want to hear someone say, it's your duty to repopulate. F you. I refuse to bring a child into this world. It is too screwed up right now. We need to fix it first. Now, I'm not saying that anybody that does bring a child into this world is wrong. Power to you. You created a life. That's awesome. As long as you're a good parent, awesome. I have a 2-year-old little niece. I have 3 nephews. I have more than enough to, you know, there's enough kids that I know of that I could spoil the hell out of them if I wanted to, or, you know, I don't need to fulfill my own desires or wants by bringing a child into this world right now. Just not a good place. And I wouldn't let my kid go through the indoctrination that I see all the, you know, the children of today being put through. My child would be homeschooled. There would be none of that. There would be none of that. It's just unbelievable. You know, I've said this on air before. I've talked to the kids, the younger ones, whenever I get a chance to. I hand out DVDs. When I used to go out strictly handing out DVDs back in the day, you know, more on the street activism before I was doing my radio show and other things. When I used to get out there on the ground, a lot more than I get a chance to now. I mean, I make up for it with I carry DVDs wherever I go. So when I get into a conversation with somebody, I go, oh, here, check this out. Certain movies, things like Beyond Treason. Joyce Riley gave me a bunch of them, and I have a bunch more copied, and I give them out to. I love to bring those to the VA and educate vets. You'd be surprised how many older Vietnam vets have come up to me and given me a hug at the VA hospital. Later on after I've given them DVDs or, business card for Federal Jack and just told them to read more and stuff. Months later, I've bumped into these guys and they'll come up out of nowhere and just give me a big hug and tell me thank you. A lot of them have told me I saved their lives because they started eating healthier, or they started shying away from shots or anything. And I don't think I saved their lives. I mean, whatever's going to get them, it's already been injected into them and been in their system for a while. I just help them see the light. I don't really look at myself like I'm saving anybody's life. I mean, if I do, that's cool, but I don't think of myself as like Superman or anything. But it was vindication that I did something right, and it was a nice feeling to know that people were listening and paying attention. It's amazing to find out in person exactly what your actions, the effect that they have on people. It really is. In fact, this coming Sunday, I have a guest on who I'm going to get into that with. Not this coming Sunday, the following Sunday, the 30th. I have Johnny English. He's a radio show host, and he owns a network. He's a friend of mine. He's going to be coming on. And apparently one of my shows I did a couple weeks ago, he heard something that resonated with him, and it's helping him have some sort of epiphany. So I'm interested to find out what he has to say. But I got a little sidetracked. The point is, when you go out and you give out DVDs and stuff like that, you end up when you make an effort and you educate people and it comes back to you, it does feel good to know that you're affecting change. And that's how we're going to do this, is by getting out there and getting on the ground and talking to look, veterans are a good place to start. Law enforcement, firefighters. There is no, if we keep fighting each other, if we don't get together, if we stay separated, if we keep finding reasons to be separated and not like each other and not trust each other, nothing's ever going to get done, right? Not a thing. Not a damn thing is going to get done if we continue to stay separated. So we need to go out and educate people. We need to, even the older generations. I don't care if they're not brainwashed like these younger generations that have no idea about 9/11 or anything like that. I don't care. Everybody is in on this. And the older generations, still, people say, I've had older people tell me, oh, well, I'm in my 70s. What can I do? I can't affect change. Bullshit. You can still affect change. You still here on this planet right now with me? Yeah? You still breathing air, or what we think is air, whatever concept you want to look at? Are you still breathing that in your lungs right now as you're talking to me? Well, then you can affect change. Doesn't matter how old you are. And you know what? You'd be surprised, to the older people, you'd be surprised how much effect your opinion could have. You sit down and you start talking and dropping knowledge. Make sure you obviously have enough of a knowledge base about what you're talking about, so when you go into the conversation, obviously nobody jumps on you, but you'd be surprised. There are still some of us out there that do respect what our elders have to say. So you'd be surprised what change you can affect. And as for the moms and the parents out there right now, you need to educate your kids as to what's really going on. Don't rely on the BS school district to do it, because they're not going to do anything for you. If you don't understand, go read Charlotte Thompson Iserby's book, or go listen to my interview from July 4th with her. It's in my archive section. And also, there's a link right in the front page of Federal Jack with a picture of her on the right side. Go listen to the interview. Go read her book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And you'll understand why our kids nowadays, why do you think there's guys that are 18 fighting in Afghanistan right now, 18, 19 years old? They're fighting in Afghanistan, and they don't even know why they're there. Why do you think that is? Because their generation was much younger when 9/11 happened. We're going to break. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to switch gears here. White House tightening its grip on internet freedoms. That's right. President, or should I say dictator, Obama. And by the way, if Romney gets in, people need to stop thinking that things would change. Really? Come on, people. It's two sides of the same coin. In some aspects, Romney's even worse. So let's not think that if Romney gets in, oh my God, everything's going to be okay. No, wrong. Stop thinking that any one person getting in is going to change things. It's not how it works. The system isn't broken. It's rigged to screw you from the get-go. The sooner you understand that and respect that fact and just accept it, okay, the sooner we can start moving on. We don't need the government to build stuff for us and to do things for us. It's already been proven that the government does a worse job at taking care of things than the private sector does. And I'm not for corporatizing and privatizing everything either, because I understand the bad side of that too. Maybe if we just looked at it from a different viewpoint of money and power weren't the goals, the survival of the species and the evolution of the species were the goal, maybe things would be a little different. In fact, I know things would be different, but unfortunately, that's not how things are looked at right now. Anyway, the White House, dictator Obama, Barack Obama, as Joe's buddy, the Brit, what's his name? The one that hates global warming with the big bug eyes, Lord Monckton. He calls him Barack Obama. Dictator Barack Obama has said that he is going to just censor the net himself. We need tighter restrictions. Congress can't pass anything, so I'm going to do an executive order. Because I'm dictator Barack Obama. Just, ugh. The hubris on this guy. And I don't think Romney would have any less hubris. He's just as much of a dick, but in another fashion. He's a neocon. This one's a neoliberal. Either way, they're both, look, there is infighting amongst these elitists and all their douchebaggery and all their little clans. There's their own infighting right now. Okay, but the end game is still the same no matter what. They might have a different path to get there, but either way, the goal is the same. So don't fall into this. Romney's a good guy, anybody but Barack. No. And how about you don't vote for Barack O'Romney at all? Okay, that's right. I call them both Barack O'Romney because that's what they are. Barack O'Romney. You're not going to get any change. Remember, Romney said he would have signed the NDAA. Is that change? The health care bill, that's being forced down everybody's throat. And by the way, I don't think that it's a bad thing that people have health care. We'd be able to fund health care for everybody if we didn't drop bombs on everything. The problem I have with the health care bill, okay, is the way it was gone about and the fact that it's not really about healthcare, it's about total control. So it's got nothing to do with healthcare. But Romney, the current Obamacare, it should be called Barack O'Romney Care. In fact, that's what I'm going to call it from now on, Barack O'Romney Care, because Barack or Barack and his advisors, his little panel that helps put that crap together, they got a lot of their ideas from Romney's healthcare legislation when he was the governor. So don't think Romney's going to give you a different choice. And I know I got a little sidetracked off of the cybersecurity thing, but I had to touch on this because people just think that, Romney's going to get in. And I keep seeing this, well, anybody but Barack. Okay, you are justifying the fact that you're falling for the same BS that months before some of these people that are going for it now were out there going, no, there's other choices. And now it's, the system is set up. No, you're not going to play the system. The system is set from the door to play you. There is no gaming the system. The sooner you realize that, the sooner it's over. And no, this isn't the Kobayashi Maru either. In case there's no Star Trek fans out there, that was a simulation that all the captains at Starfleet Academy had to go through. And it was an unbeatable situation. It was an impossible one. Nobody ever beat it. They were just judged on how they handled themselves during the situation, except for Captain Kirk. He went in and rewrote the programming to the thing, wrote a backdoor, and he beat it. And he was the only person that did it. Anyway, that's just a little background on why I said Kobayashi Maru. Anyway, this isn't a Kobayashi Maru. This isn't a situation that is unbeatable. The way that we get our backdoor, like Kirk did, the way we do it, is to stop partaking in the system. Oh, now you're talking about anarchy. Oh, my God, sovereign citizen type stuff. No. What I'm talking about is stop buying into the garbage that you're going to change something with one vote. What did Stalin say about voting? It really doesn't matter who votes. It's who counts the votes. So who's counting our votes this year? Anyone? An Israeli company. I don't know the name right now. I'm trying to find out the name. But go ahead and look it up. There's an Israeli private company that's going to be counting the ballots this year for the presidential election in the United States. And who do they favor? Who do the Israelis favor? Romney. That's who they favor. You think I'm kidding? Go look it up. It's known that Netanyahu and Romney are buddies, and that he would do anything that, he'd be Israel's little bitch. And isn't it really convenient that the elections are going to be counted, the votes are going to be counted by an Israeli firm? Do we have any reason to trust them any more than we've trusted any of these companies in the past? All the voting machines can be hacked. It's been proven. Joe had Bev Harris on. Go listen to Joe's interview with Bev Harris. Go look up Bev Harris. Blackboxvoting.org, I think, is her website, if I remember correctly. And they did a movie. HBO actually did a documentary with her about rigging the election. This is the real deal. They've had people testify in Congress that they could rig the elections. And then the guy dies in a plane crash. Oh, single-engine plane crash, right? Little Cessna. Isn't it amazing? By the way, as a side note, you want a little project? Go out and study plane crashes over the past 20 years. Small plane crashes. The internet's a wonderful thing. Get the statistics on all the small plane crashes in 20 years. The little, not passenger jets. You can look at them too, but first look at the small plane crashes, and then look up notable people, such as, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the IT guy that testified to Congress or it was either Congress or a Senate subcommittee of some sort, about how the code was written into the source code of the Diebold voting machines that it could flip the vote. He testified, and then he died later. He was supposed to, I don't know if he was supposed to testify again, but then he died in a small plane crash not too long after the first time he testified. Anyway, go look up individuals like that, Paul Wellstone. Look up, when you see these plane crashes, see how many of them are notable people, or people that were coming forward, or whistleblowers, or things like that. You'll realize that there's a staggering amount that, and I haven't looked at the numbers myself, so I can't definitively say a number-to-number ratio, but I would say you're probably looking at least, and I'm willing to guess, anywhere between 40 to 50% of those crashes are well-known people. Politicians, whistleblowers. Go look it up. I'm not kidding. Because when you realize how many of these people die in small plane crashes, and then you realize the amount of small plane crashes per year, it's like red flag, red flag. It's one of their favorite ways to take people out. I've interviewed Fetzer about this, about Wellstone's death. There was another guy, I think his name was Paul Carnahan. Or not Paul Carnahan, Mel Carnahan, sorry. I was putting Paul Wellstone's name together with his. Mel Carnahan, I think his name was. He was killed the year before. He was another politician. I can't remember if he was the governor or if he was running for Congress or something, but he looked that up. He was another one that got killed in a plane crash. All these political people, all these people that know too much, seem to die in plane crashes, single-engine plane crashes, small plane crashes. Sometimes they die in big ones, too. But most of the time, it's these little tiny planes. All right, we're going to break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, more on the cybersecurity executive order. All right, so getting back to cybersecurity, I want to play this clip from RT that they had this guy from the EFF, and in case you aren't aware what the EFF is, it's the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The guy's name's Trevor Tim, and they're talking about Obama's, the facts of what we know right now anyway of Obama's executive order for cybersecurity, since they couldn't get it passed. So rather than me murder their conversation, why don't I just let you hear it for a few minutes? So here you go.
We turn now to the hot button issue of cybersecurity in the U.S. A draft of the White House's cybersecurity executive order has been leaked. We've been reporting on the various cybersecurity bills making its way through Congress. Some of them, like SOPA and CISPA, didn't get very far after facing public backlash. But now it looks like the White House is taking matters into its own hands. Internet activists say the leaked executive order is more harsh and vague than some of the controversial legislation that we've seen. So what does this mean for your internet freedoms? To weigh in, Trevor Tim, an activist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, joins me now. Trevor, welcome. First off, I want to get your reaction to the draft executive order that was leaked.
Well, like you said in the opening, it's very vague. It talks a lot about critical infrastructure and the actual sectors that it's meant to protect, but we don't really know what those critical infrastructure sectors are. They're very broad. We can all agree that electric grids and nuclear power plants and water treatment centers are critical infrastructure, but it also talks about communications. So does that involve like email servers and social networks like Facebook and Twitter? We really have no idea. And it also talks about information sharing, which was the real controversy over CISPA in the Senate's bill, which basically would have carved a giant hole in our privacy laws that would have allowed companies to hand over large swaths of information voluntarily to the government, which they normally would have needed a warrant or a court order. Now, at least with the executive order, the president can't unilaterally change privacy laws. He needs Congress for that. So if there is good news is that we know they're not going to be able to dramatically expand their rights to take information from companies, but it's still something to keep an eye on.
Going along with that, this is an executive order, so should citizens be concerned that the White House is taking unilateral action instead of Congress passing a cybersecurity bill?
Well, I think it's always important when there's an executive order that people read it over closely and make sure that the president isn't overstepping his authority. Here, the problem is it's written very vaguely, so we don't really know what it will accomplish, if anything. The real problem is Republicans are talking about how, there shouldn't be an executive order. But what they're saying is that actually, no, we should have more information sharing. We need a law so companies can give our private information to the government. You
see, so both sides of the coin still want control over the internet. So it's not, there shouldn't be an executive order because it violates constitutional rights and the internet should remain free and people shouldn't be bothered and Fourth Amendment. No. They just want a law. They want a law to be able to look at all your info, your emails, everything. Everything. They want to know what you're looking at on the internet, what you're listening to. Remember, the FBI gave a contract last year to a private company to monitor all web-based radio. So this broadcast right now is being monitored and recorded for the government. Hi, guys. Remember, go to Orion Talk Radio, oriontalkradio.com. Go to the front page and donate because it's job security. If you don't donate $20 or $30 to help Jimmy run the network, then you guys won't have a job recording us. So if you want job security, whatever private company contractors out there, probably a subsidiary of Blackwater or something, donate $20 or $30. I know you guys are listening. Hope you enjoy the show. Back to the clip.
Government, and that's the opposite of what we want. I think this executive order kind of shows that actually cybersecurity bills aren't even really needed in the first place. The government can go ahead and share any information it wants with companies. And, what they could do with these critical information or these critical infrastructure sectors is just unplug them from the internet. There's no reason that our, water treatment centers and nuclear power plants have to be on the open internet. They can be on a closed network. So I think they're looking for solutions that they don't actually need right now.
So what does this mean for activists that have fought for online privacy and online freedoms? We saw a pretty hard fight to make sure that SOPA didn't get through. I mean, what does it mean for activists like that who have really tried to prevent legislation from going through, and now we have this executive order that kind of bypasses all of that?
Well, luckily the executive order doesn't touch a lot on the information sharing and the privacy law loopholes that we were primarily concerned about. Like I said, the executive branch can't go ahead and do that by themselves. They've even said to the news media, we can't address information sharing like we'd like to. And so that's a good thing. And so at least with the executive order, the worst of the worst parts of these bills, we won't have to worry about coming to fruition.
This is a draft executive order, and with a lot of drafts, we see that they do change. How do you expect this one to evolve?
Well, hopefully it will get more specific. The language in this bill is very vague. Like I said, there's really no definition the definition of critical infrastructure is so broad it could encompass anything, and they should just be concentrating on the real critical parts of our infrastructure. Like I said before, nuclear power plants and water treatment centers and electric grids. We don't need to include all sorts of communication systems in this. This should be narrowly tailored for the worst sorts of problems that we can face. And
by the way, I've had hacker Winston Smith on before to talk about this and go over this. And what have we said before? They were never hooked up to the internet before. There's no reason to be hooking them up to the internet now just so you can create a problem. They have their own closed networks. If they have a cable line coming in from an outside, like a Comcast or a whatever company is out there that you happen to be with, if they have a line coming in from one of those companies, to the external internet, it's for like the secretary to be able to go on Facebook or whatever or get online. But they have their own closed systems. Military does too. It's insane to think. It is insane to think that some hackers are going to take out the electrical grid. Actually, what's a bigger danger to the electrical grid is the aging infrastructure. Again, let's spend money on bombs to blow up children in foreign countries, but let's not work on the infrastructure right here in the home country that's falling apart.
As long as they don't touch on information sharing, then we should be okay. But if they even mention it like they do, they should absolutely recognize in the executive order that privacy and civil liberties need to be protected.
Interesting. And Trevor, I do want to bring up another development. This Kaspersky, it's a Russian-based cybersecurity firm, discovered that there are different cyber threats that exist right now that have the same coding as Flame. If you can recall, Flame was a state-sponsored. It was found to be a state-sponsored virus. So all the signs point to the attacks being state-sponsored. With this development, Trevor, does this provide justification that there is a need to regulate the internet?
I think regulate's the wrong word. Obviously, many nations are developing cyber weapons capabilities, and we definitely should, as a government or any country, want to protect our own systems. And the thing is, the government can do that without affecting privacy law. They can beef up the security on their networks without having to get information or our personal information from private companies. And, there's also been former FBI officials and NSA officials commenting that we need more offensive capabilities to actually hack more. And that's going to somehow, solve our cybersecurity problem, where they would be able to reach into other servers and delete information or encrypt information that they claim is stolen. I think the cybersecurity debate is kind of morphed into this monster where, the government is trying to ask for all these powers that they don't really need, and that the simple solutions are already here and they can be implemented really easily.
So yeah, the White House is saying that cybersecurity is very serious risks, poses risks, as you pointed out before. They're saying it poses risks to infrastructure, transportation, communication, all these things. And they're almost saying that this is a last resort in order to protect the U.S. From cyber threats. They are portraying us as being vulnerable to these threats. But you're saying that this is not necessary.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, especially the information sharing from private companies to the government. I mean, Facebook originally supported CISPA, and then when they were criticized, they said, we don't need this provision. That's not why we supported this bill, and we won't use it if necessary. The government can share as much information with companies as they want. The executive branch is the one that controls the classification system. So if they want to hand classified information to companies, that's fine. They don't need a law for that. And the same thing goes with critical infrastructure. If they just unplug these things from the open networks, then that would go a long way to solve the problem. So hopefully we're going to see that type of...
Did you hear what you just said? If they would just unplug the quote-unquote critical infrastructure from open networks, problem solved. Why are they connected to the open network to begin with? A half-retarded blind monkey could figure out that would be a bad idea. So the only reason why they would be, hooked up would be to be taken down. Problem, reaction, solution. The Hegelian dialectic. Right at work in front of your very eyes to take away your internet freedoms. It's as real as can be. We're going to break. We'll be back with hour number 2 in a few minutes. Do not go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from federaljack.com. Make sure you check my website out. I do put a lot of effort and energy into it, and it's all for free. All of my shows are archived there. If you go up, just type in federaljack.com. When the page loads up right on the front, you look on the right side, you'll see, first thing you'll see is a link or a picture advertising my radio broadcast. That is a widget. If you click on it, it brings you right to the show Listen Live page, which some of you are probably tuned into right now, where the Shoutcast and Flash Player are, plus a chat room to be interactive with other listeners. And then below it is a link it says Listen Live. If you click on that widget, it'll bring up the Flash Player. And if you click on the widget below that, the banner that says Radio Show Archives, it'll bring you to my archive page, and you can check out all of my shows. They are listed, so people know, and this is written at the top of the page. They are listed oldest to newest. I do that for a reason. So it makes people go through all of the older shows to get to the newer ones. That way you might see something in the archives that, oh, wow, Popeye did a show on this, or he did a show on that. And you'll see each one of them has a title, and it tells you either a quick summary in a few words of what it's about, or the guest's name that day. So go check it out. All right. I want to get into a few other things, but everything keeps pointing me right back to the same spot, which is censorship, censorship, censorship. I'm going to play you about a minute of audio here. I want you to hear this. Apple has a brand new app. Check it out.
Time where we videotape just about everything, whether our dog is doing something adorable or police officers are beating someone up in the back alley. It's the digital age, after all. And a freedom that we enjoy because technology allows us to capture what's actually happening, what's actually being said. But it might not always be this way. I want to tell you a little bit more about this patent awarded to Apple this week. It's titled Apparatus and Methods for Enforcement of Policies Upon a Wireless Device. Now, in it, there are details about why this policy enforcement capability is useful. It gives examples of the need to disable noise or light emanating from wireless devices, like at a movie theater. For preventing wireless devices from communicating with each other, such as in academic settings, and also for forcing certain electronic devices to enter into sleep mode when entering a sensitive area. Also in this patent, a reference to the use in, quote, government buildings. So whereas now you might be able to record what your elected officials are saying, well, that might change soon. We're going to be keeping our eyes on this story, but we did want to let you know.
Isn't that nice? Apple can disable your cameras, your microphone, the complete phone. Not that they can't listen to your stuff, but now they can literally turn it off. Did you hear what she said? You going into a quote-unquote secure area, they'll turn your phone off for you. We feel this is secure. You shouldn't have your phone on here. Excuse me? Do you pay my phone bill? Are you going to be paying my monthly bill? Then hands off my damn phone. See, this is why I'm getting rid of my smartphone. You don't think that they would turn off video cameras at protests? It's already been done. Remember the BART protest out in California a couple months ago? Remember what they did? The BART transit system? Because once you're down below in the subways, you have concrete between you and the satellites. So in order to get a cell phone signal, you need to have their backup system where it's set up so that it'll literally, usually it's the antennas, in the ceilings and stuff. Sometimes you'll see it in hospitals too, because hospitals have their own communication system set up with those pagers. And they still use old school beepers, yes. And inside the BART subway system, they had somewhat of the same setup where they were able to provide people with access for their cell phone to get access to the outside world, because you are, after all, again, encased in concrete. And when people were protesting that BART cop shooting that kid, Oscar Grant, I think his name was, he was laying on the ground, and they had him handcuffed, and the cop shot him in the back and killed him because the bullet went through his back, out his chest, hit the concrete, and bounced back up and just eviscerated this kid's lung. And he died right there at the scene. Everybody remember that? And the cop actually, I think, if I remember correctly, he even got held accountable for it. Yeah, well, they were protesting. I think it was the day, if I remember correctly, that he was being sentenced. And people were protesting. And when they were protesting, they shut the phones off. So do you really think that they won't do this or they shut the signal, the booster, whatever the hell it was, they shut the access to the signal in the BART station off. So then people couldn't, and in the surrounding area. Now they might have used, who knows, maybe they use cell phone blockers. That exists too. That technology exists. I don't remember if they used a blocking system or if they just shut the access to their underground off. They might have used a blocking system too. There's so much bad news that I get during the course of it one day that sometimes it bleeds in, a little bit bleeds into the next. So you have to forgive me if I don't quite remember the exact details of it, but just go look it up. They blocked cell phones that people had no signal. So if they can do that, if they can block your reception, you don't think that they have the access and the ability to turn your phone on and off? Turn your camera off? I mean, the balls. Well, you're going into a movie theater. We're going to disable your camera. Are you kidding me? What, so you could stage more mass shootings and then say, well, there's no cell phone video footage and there's no video footage whatsoever because nobody's cell phones could record? And think about it. Think about the implications of that. They're saying, of course, it's for safety. But why does a private corporation need the ability to patent the ability to turn off your phone remotely? And then they want to patent it so that they can sell that patent, or they could license it out to different apps. So you download an app for your phone. I got this new app, yeah. And that app they have backdoor control to shut your phone off. So say you download a new camera app for your phone. I mean, it would be this simple. You download a certain camera app, right? That attaches to your camera software. All that stuff works together inside your phone. What happens if that camera app has the ability to shut your camera off? And then and what happens when that corporation that made that turns out to be government funded, which often happens a lot. CIA, NSA. So what happens when that happens? This isn't a conspiracy theory. I mean, you already have Apple conspiring to turn your phone off. They're getting together to do something bad. That's a plot, i.e. a conspiracy. So you have these people. I mean, think about it. What good does that do? Well, it's copyright law. No, are you kidding me? They'll use any excuse in the world. Secrets, national security, this or that. What are they so afraid of? See, that's the question. You see how they speak out of both sides of their mouth, these controllers? They tell you that you have to have a camera on every light pole and every stop sign and every stoplight looking at you from every direction. They want stop sign cameras, speed cameras, this type of camera, that type of camera. They want cameras all over the place. But when they're recorded, they don't like it. Or when the cameras prove that their story is a lie, then they don't like it. But you're supposed to turn around and accept cameras up your ass. They're putting cameras in bathrooms in the UK now, in schools. They're putting cameras in the locker rooms and in the bathrooms. And parents are okay with this because they're like, well, I don't want my kid going in the bathroom and doing drugs. So you'd rather have a pedophile jerking off looking at your kid while they go to the bathroom? What the hell kind of parent are you? For real. Because that's what's going to happen. Oh, Popeye, you're just going overboard. Really? That type of position where you're watching somebody in the bathroom or in the locker room and their kids attracts a certain type of scumbag. Look at TSA. You wonder why I don't want to have kids. Somebody if touched my kid, I'd be in jail. It's as simple as that. We're going to break. Because I can't play this enough, I'm going to play some audio from my broadcast back in January. It's January 20th of this year with Winston Smith. And I'm going to play this because I want you guys to hear this. And there's a lot of new listeners that have tuned in between January and now. Okay, Winston's a hacker, for those of you that don't know. And listen to what he said. This dovetails with what I was talking about in hour number 1, going into hour number 2, with having critical infrastructure plugged into the internet when you don't need to, things like that. Listen to what he warned about. And then remember, think about all these quote-unquote anonymous attacks that have happened between now and then. Listen what he had to say. Back. Before we got cut off, Winston was about to get into what he foresees. And this is something that him and I off air have talked about multiple times. And other people have discussed it. But he's going to get a little more in-depth. And he's going to tell you what he foresees. And if it happens, then what to look for and, who to be looking for, I should say, and who to be looking at. So, Winston, go ahead. The floor is yours, my friend.
Everyone should, notice for the last 15 or so years, Hollywood's been pushing certain themes in all hacker-related films. As far back as 15 years ago in the movie Hackers from 1994, you've got that. You've got the whole premise of that movie is a white hat security researcher developed a virus that's going to sink some oil tankers as a distraction for stealing some money, and then the attack gets blamed on hackers. Then you have Die Hard 4, which is another movie based on infrastructure attacks where hackers are attacking the critical infrastructure of the city. Then you have movies like Takedown, which is the Miramax picture, which is a fictionalized account of Kevin Mitnick, the hacker from California. And in that film, Kevin Mitnick hacks into a white hat security researcher, one of the good guys who worked with the government, and found a proof of concept virus that he wrote, which attacks SCADA systems and attacks industrial, nuclear plants, water lines, that type of thing. These types of themes are prevalent throughout all these movies, and within the last several years, we've seen these actual white hat, government-funded, corporate-developed proof of concepts tools start to come out for infrastructure attacks. On the most extreme examples are the Stuxnet virus and the Dooku virus, which have already been proven to come from governments and Israeli government and U.S. government sources. And then you'll have at every hacker conference that comes out, you'll have these floods of SCADA attack tools developed by not by black hat hackers, but by white hat security professionals who work for vulnerability firms, and they're simply developed and simply interested in getting their name out there and finding the latest vulnerabilities in these SCADA systems, because that's the latest buzzword around the information security system is SCADA protection and critical infrastructure protection. What all this is leading to is there's going to be a large-scale attack on SCADA systems, which will be false flagged by the New World Order, and it will be used, and they will end up doing exactly what the films had said they were going to do, and they're going to end up blaming hackers and throwing the anonymous matter on the attack. So when a large-scale SCADA attack does happen, don't look to basement-dwelling anonymous people. Look towards white-hat security professionals and their government contracting firms who are developing it and speaking at conferences about these attacks, because they're the ones who are standing to profit from patching the vulnerabilities and implementing the solutions for it. For a long time, the critical infrastructure aspects of society, like the nuclear power plants and the dams and the sewer pipelines and all that stuff, all those things used to never be internet connected. It's considered crazy to consider making that a public-facing infrastructure. But as everything starts being given IP addresses, and even now washing machines are being given IP addresses, things end up on the internet. And even if a single outside machine can get compromised with something into this eternal network, then it is possible to worm through and get control of it. Especially considering a lot of these SCADA systems are ridiculously simple, using programming languages and architectures from 20 years ago. And the reason is they were never meant to be internet facing, but they are now. And there's going to be an attack on them, and it's going to be backed by the government so that they can use it to continue to implement controls and restrict internet freedoms, get things like SOPA and PIPA and all sorts of other restrictive internet legislations passed under the guise of protecting society from these critical infrastructure attacks by these wily groups of hackers.
So, do you think that there's any chance that we can, maybe the good hackers, which I know there are tons of them out there, is there any way that these people can help foil this? Somehow maybe leak plans if they hear of something, or if they maybe be on alert to all maybe the hackers that listen to this, because I know there's a large contingent of people that pull my the archives and stuff that are hackers. I get emails from them time to time. You've even told me. Do you think that they can maybe be more on alert and try to keep an eye out for this kind of stuff, see if there's any unusual stuff going on the back end? Because that's where you'd spot it, would be on the back end, correct? Well,
one would think, but just like the way 9/11 had a lot of open source public intelligence leading to it, we'll probably be better off as people in the hacker community and the information security community in general. They should really just follow the news and follow developments on SCADA vulnerabilities that are being released and discovered, and who's the one discovering them? What are they? What's the purpose of it? A lot of it is just legitimate researchers trying to make a name off of a hot topic, make a name for themselves off finding vulns in a system that's very popular to do right now. They can make a lot of money finding vulnerabilities and then getting contracts for the companies. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is the problem is once those vulnerabilities are indexed and cataloged, the government will pick and choose which ones they want to do. Put together a black ops team to carry it out, and then blame it on a group like Anonymous.
Yeah, and then some 14 or 15-year-old kid will be the patsy.
The Bin Laden of the internet.
Yeah, and they'll make them go down in history as the bad guy when in reality it's not. It's unbelievable. All right, there you go. There's a little bit more to it. There's about another 3.5 minutes to it, but you can look it up. It's on federaljack.com. There's actually a link to it in the slider. If you click through a couple of the pictures, it's hacker Winston Smith warns of false flag hack attacks, and I'll drop a link to it in the chat page. The people that are listening to the chat room. But you heard what he just said. He said that if this is done, if it happens, and it's not it could happen, they're setting the stage for it. So I keep playing the audio, because if you look at what's going on, you have these different attacks, like the one on GoDaddy, right? The other day, and GoDaddy swears it wasn't an attack, and then supposedly it was It was at first, all the major news agencies were reporting it like it was anonymous because a single hacker had said, "Yeah, I'm with Anonymous," and instead of doing any fact checking, they just run with it, right? And people could say, "Well, that's just simple not doing any work." Well, how about if some of this stuff is done on purpose? Have you heard anything about this kid since then? What if some of this stuff is done on purpose? To keep laying the groundwork, keep setting them up in people's eyes as the bad guy. Remember, the court of public opinion is very important. You need people. You need people to accept things. And in this day and age, it's not as easy as it used to be for the controllers. So they got to lay the groundwork first. And they keep saying cybersecurity, or else we're going to have some sort of internet 9/11. Well, we're going to break. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to tune in to the broadcast the next few weeks because I got a slew of interesting guests coming on. Host Ryan Brooks from the network is going to be coming on. If you don't know who he is, I'm going to introduce you to him. Mike Vale's coming on this Friday with me. Glenn from We Are Change is coming on. He's from We Are Change, New Jersey. He's coming on next week. Next week, Wednesday, and next week, Friday, good friend of the show, Gerald President, will be coming back. For those of you that don't know who Gerald is, I met him, had the pleasure of meeting him at the Occupy Miami event. Gerald attended it much like me in a independent fashion, just going to kind of gauge the people that were there and to at least speak out there about the reality of situations and stuff. And when I met him, I listened to him do a speech there, and I got a chance. I went over and I interviewed him, and I've played the interview on air before. And I ended up subsequently getting in touch with him for an interview for the broadcast. And Gerald was he's a great guest, very smart guy, and he is a law enforcement officer in a different county than where the protest was. But he's an awake officer. In fact, Gerald and I have had conversations even on air about him talking to the other police and trying to wake them up, and the difficulty he has trying to do that. So there are good police officers out there still, and Gerald is one of them. And I haven't gotten a chance to have him on in a while, and he's going to be joining us next week, Friday, the 28th. So make sure you tune in for that. And I'm glad I had the chance to. Today I had an open slot, and I like having a slot like this because there are times that over the course of a week or two, a lot of things happen, or there's an issue and something I want to play a clip from for you guys to either hear, or something I want to tear apart. And I really never get a chance to do it anymore a lot lately because I've been having guests on, which I don't mind. I love having guests on, but I also like once in a while having an open slot so I can do what I'm doing now. And with that, I'm going to play about 2 minutes of audio for you that something I was talking about in the first hour. And this is to back it up so you don't think I was just pulling this out of my behind and making this up and that, oh, Popeye, it didn't, come on, they really wouldn't, do that. And what I'm referring to is I said that I was telling you about the high school, the class of 2002, which would go from 2001 to 2002. And I said there was an entire class that they were all getting sick because they were breathing all the crap because they didn't clean the vents out. It was Stuyvesant High School. And I want to play you the audio. This is from Dust to Dust. You got to look this movie up. Dust to Dust, the health effects of 9/11. Dust to Dust, the health effects of 9/11. If you go to federaljack.com, scroll down, click on the Truth Movie widget on the right side there. That right side, so people know, all those things that you can click on. If you hover your mouse over it, you'll see the little hand open up instead of being a cursor. A lot of those are widgets to either websites or pages that I made for, like my interview with Charlotte Iserby is up there. It's got its own little page with links and stuff on there and some other info. So all of those things will take you to information. And the one that says Truth Movies, if you click on that, it brings you to the Truth Movie section I made. Just look under 9/11, and there's a link for Dust to Dust right there. And just click on it, and it'll open up a play for you. Check this out. Okay, this will back up exactly what I was telling you before about Stuyvesant High School. Listen.
There was a huge drive to reopen the building. That was all part of the general spirit of the time, which was...
And this is Jenna Orkin, who's one of the Stuyvesant High School parents. So she's a parent of one of the children there.
Let's show the terrorists, let's get back up into downtown, get back up on the horse. They told us they cleaned the ventilation system. Everybody goes back into the building. The media show up. Look at these brave kids. Aren't they a model for us all? And then later we find out the ventilation system was not cleaned. So the kids are inhaling deeply this toxic dust. There were signs of illness very early on. There were rashes, nosebleeds, new onset asthma that can last the rest of their lives, chronic sinusitis. Some of the kids were taking medication that included steroids, and chemical bronchitis, chronic bronchitis. The list goes on and on.
We know that there are people, both adults and children, who developed asthma as a result of coming back to that area too soon. We know that there are some people who are still working or living in environments that are still contaminated, and this material can be resuspended into the air to cause additional health consequence.
The residents who live near the area, who believe the government, run a high risk of health effects 20 years down the line, including cancer. The workers already are experiencing serious health effects from working there and believing EPA and the government.
Yep. Those are all the people that I was talking about that are dead now. Remember I said that we've lost more than we lost that day? If I remember correctly, last time I checked, the number was somewhere up about 1,000 of the original first responders from that day have passed away due to illnesses related to their work at Ground Zero. Who's the real terrorist? Who really brings death and destruction and uses fear to control people for political gains? Because that's what terrorism is. Who really does that? Some Arab in a cave thousands of miles away with a sat phone and a laptop and his elaborate, cave, I don't even know what to call it, a fortress, like Cobra in G.I. Joe. You really think it was that? Or do you think it was the government? The people that actually gained from this? Do you think it was, and the government is such a crappy term, I can't even stand to use that. Because government, we anthropomorphize it too much. For those of you that don't understand what that means, anthropomorphize means giving it man-like qualities. We give government man-like qualities. And then we judge or use the term the government. It's not the government. The government's a freaking tool. Government itself does mean mind control, but it's just a tool. It's these tools, plural, that are controlling it. Now, what would they gain? What would the controllers, what would they gain? Certainly a lot more than some Arab in a cave, right? Because, as I said plenty of times before, what Arab what anybody, we make fun of these people. They live in tents. They have no electricity. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, well, what person like that, in that kind of condition, would gain from pissing off the world's most superior military? What would they gain? Nothing. They'd gain a Marine boot in their ass. Or a Tomahawk cruise missile in their tent. They wouldn't gain anything. You don't think that these guys think about that? Oh, Popeye, they don't think about that. They're crazy Muslim extremists. Really? Really? People need to grow up. It's not that simple. Research Bin Laden. Go listen to my, in the past 2 weeks worth of shows about 9/11 that I did. Debunking 9/11, debunking. Go listen to the broadcast I did. I think it was this past Sunday. It was Sunday. When I played Cooper. Listen to the last 15 minutes of the broadcast. listen to the whole show, but listen to the last 15, 20 minutes. You'll hear Cooper talk. Before 9/11, he said, don't buy into this. If you believe it, you are dumb. I'm not picking on anybody. I understand the level of mind control. But, man, we need to stop. Oh, the Arabs, they're going to get us. As I said earlier, they're teaching kids that the Afghani people, the Afghan citizens, these kids are being taught nowadays. The future generations of this country, ladies and gentlemen, that's the future leaders. The people that are going to be in charge in your local area, or maybe your county, maybe your sheriff in the future, when you're in your 60s. They're being taught that we're in Afghanistan for a just cause because all those Afghani people hate us for our freedom and our way of life, and they attacked us. First of all, the terrorists, or the supposed terrorists, were all friggin' Saudis. Unacceptable. We're going to break. When we come back, I got a treat for you. Final segment, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I always thank you all for tuning in the beginning of the segment, because, as you very well know, I have a habit of going right up to the end bumper music. So I want to let you all know that I do appreciate every one of you listening. Again, I'd be speaking to the wall if you weren't listening, and a lot of you do take charge of your personal life, or do take what I say to heart, and you've emailed me and told me about it and shared your stories and stuff with me, and I appreciate that. So I take what I do seriously. I understand that I have a big responsibility, and I just want to let you all know that I do appreciate you tuning in, and I love every single one of you. Now, as for the treat that I promised you, it's around that time of year. It's coming up. November is not too far away. I'm not talking about the elections. Talking about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It's going to be the 49th anniversary this year. Next year is the 50th. And I came across a video that I recently posted up on Federal Jack for everybody, and I thought that you all might be interested in hearing the audio. And this is from a mock trial of Lee Harvey Oswald, in which Paul K. O'Connor, who was an attendant at JFK's autopsy in Bethesda Naval Hospital, and there's a lot of things that are connected to that if you go research how there was control over the autopsy and everything else. But it's a mock trial with Vincent Bugliosi and Jerry Spence, and this is all the lawyers and the attorney and the jury are all real, and the judge are all real. They're all the judge, the jury, and the attorneys, I should say, are all real people. They're not actors. It's just a mock trial, meaning it wasn't in, obviously, a real civil trial where people are going to get charges pending against them or anything, but things still do go on the record, and everybody there is real and official. And it's about the autopsy of Kennedy and his brain. And you'll hear some shocking information. So I thought you might be interested in this. I've been wanting to play this for you, and I have just enough time to do it in the final segment. So here you go. Check it out.
Mr. O'Connor, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who you are.
My name is Paul K. O'Connor. I was from Gainesville, Florida.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you were doing when you were 21 years old?
Yes.
What were you doing?
I was a hospital corpsman, United States Navy, and I was stationed in Bethesda, Maryland.
At Bethesda Hospital where the president was brought?
Yes, sir.
Were you present when they brought the president in?
Yes, sir.
And would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your duties were at Bethesda Hospital at that time?
Well, I worked with a partner. We assisted in postmortem. My job in postmortem was to remove the deceased brain.
Are you just a little bit nervous?
A little bit.
Well, I don't blame you. It's all right. Just take your time.
If he was that close to me, I'd be a little worried too, Mr. O'Connor.
I'll back off.
Thank you.
Just we're all in this together, so just
I understand.
Just take your time.
Speak up just a little bit, if you would, please, Mr. O'Connor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Now, when the president came in, what did you do?
The casket came in approximately 8 o'clock in the evening. They set the casket on the floor beside the table, and we opened the casket. Inside was a body bag. The body bag was unzipped, and we removed the president's body and placed it on the table.
Did you help do that?
Yes.
Did you have your hands on him?
Yes.
At what part of his body, sir?
His shoulders.
All right, you were at the head end.
Yes.
Well, now let's just describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you were prepared to do. What were you prepared to do?
Prepare the body, to remove the brain. And
you were prepared to remove the brain?
Yes.
And would you tell the jury how that's done, please?
In order to remove a brain from a deceased person, you have to make an incision that goes from ear across the top of the head to ear. Then the scalp is slowly peeled back until it's hooked under the chin on the front. The scalp is retracted in the back the same way. You then cut the temporal muscles on both sides. You have two sets of muscles on both sides called temporal muscles. They're cut. Then I used a saw and sawed completely around the top of the cranium.
And then what, sir?
You take a small chisel and you pry the cranium loose and open up the top of the skull where you have the dura mater, which is a tough, fibrous membrane that covers the brain. That's then cut with a pair of scissors all the way around close to where you've done the cutting with a saw. That exposes the whole top of the brain. At that time, you reach in very gently with your left hand and you pull up the front of the brain and cut the optic nerves and other nerves and veins and arteries that hold and support the the brain in the cranium.
All right, now, Mr. O'Connor, in this case, we have developed some facts that when these doctors who testified here came before this jury to testify, they were never shown a brain. Although they were told there had been a brain placed in a bucket of formaldehyde, but they never were shown the brain. Do you have an explanation for that?
Yes, I do.
Would you tell the jury what the explanation is?
The president's brains were literally blown out of his head. He had none.
Are you saying that there was no brain in the president's head?
There was no brain. There were pieces of brain matter that were inside the cranium, just macerated pieces. Nothing that you could tell one part from the other.
Well, what do you mean there were pieces? How much of the brain was left in the skull?
Maybe a handful at the most.
You mean a full handful or what?
Maybe a half a handful.
Now, did you open the president's brain as you would in an ordinary case?
We didn't have to.
You mean you didn't peel the president's brain back?
No, there was nothing to do. He had a monstrous hole in his head.
And so there was never a cut around or the hole or the brain taken out?
We didn't have to.
Because the brain wasn't there?
The brain was gone for all practical purposes. It was gone.
Well, when these people draw pictures of the brain, when these people say that there were photographs taken of the brain, what do you have to say about that?
They must be talking about somebody else.
Well, were you at the head of the president all during the time the autopsy was taken?
The whole time.
When people say that the brain was fixed in formaldehyde, is that true?
No.
Is that a lie, sir?
It has to be. There's no brain.
Thank you, sir. You may examine.
Mr. O'Connor, you were 21 at the time, sir? The time of the incident?
21 or 22.
This is Pugliosi.
I have no doubt, Mr. O'Connor, that in a normal situation, it would be you who would remove the brain from the decedent, but this obviously and unquestionably was not a normal situation. You certainly agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it possible then that the autopsy surgeons would have done this, as opposed to you, in this situation, since it was so unusual?
Well, they did most of the mundane jobs that we did that night.
Okay. But they did not remove the brain from the body?
There was no brain to be removed.
The official autopsy report in this case, Mr. O'Connor, dated November the 22nd, 1963, states on page 4, the brain is removed and preserved for further study following formalin fixation. Also, from the surface of the disrupted right cerebral cortex, 2 small, irregularly shaped fragments of metal are recovered. These measure 7 by 2 millimeters and 3 by 1 millimeter. These are placed in the custody of agents Francis X. O'Neill, Jr. and James W. Siebert of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who executed a receipt therefor. Now, Mr. O'Connor, 3 surgeons signed their name to this autopsy report. Are you saying that none of these things happened?
Not to my knowledge, they didn't.
Okay. Now, in 1978, you were interviewed by the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this was a 1.5-hour interview.
Yes, as I can remember.
Now, Mr. O'Connor, if the president's brain being missing from his head is one of the most shocking things that you've ever seen in your entire life, a matter that you think should have been investigated, certainly, and if they spoke to you for 1.5 hours about your observations that night, why wasn't it important enough for you to tell these people about it?
I was under orders not to talk until that time.
What?
I was under orders not to talk to anybody.
By whom?
By the United States military brought in orders a couple of days after the autopsy, and we were to remain silent.
But you talked to them for 1.5 hours. You told them all types of things in that document.
I received permission from the Select Committee on Assassinations to talk to the Secretary of Navy and Secretary of Defense.
Paul, when I first asked you this question over the phone, did you tell me the reason I never told them is they never asked me?
Well, they didn't ask me.
And that's why you didn't tell them?
Yes.
So in other words, Mr. O'Connor, even though this is one of the most shocking things that you've ever seen in your...
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got cut it off there. There's only been another 30 seconds of audio with Bugliosi, kind of hammering him. You tell he was like, what? You were under orders not to talk? By who? The U.S. military? What? True history is stranger than fiction. I'll catch you all on Friday. I love you all. I'm out of here.